Hello guys, welcome to a new video. So Lara Croft is basically the queen of adventure. She faced off against dinosaurs and impossible tombs and saved the world more times than we can count. But let's be honest, even legends mess up. For all her smarts and awesome skills, Lara's ambition often gets the best of her. Her quest for ancient secrets sometimes leads to a total disaster. We are going to talk about the 10 biggest oops moments and worst decisions Lara Croft has ever made. 10. Ditching her fancy life. Lara was born into health and privilege, but after the plane crash in the Himalayas, everything changed. That experience opened her eyes. She realized she didn't care for the high society lifestyle and started valuing challenges, adventure, and being alone. It was almost like a spiritual shift for her. So she basically walked away from that world completely. I've always said I find that really cool and inspiring. It shows how she's independent, like she doesn't need anyone to define who she is. But at the same time, as much as being alone can feel empowering, I do think it's also important to share experiences with others, especially family, and that's where this decision feels a bit more complicated. She cut ties with her family and became more isolated, which might not have been the healthiest choice in the long run. Then again, we don't really know much about her parents, like how they were. So yeah, but like we know at least they cared to go to her funeral. So of all the bad decisions that I'm going to talk in this video, this one it's kind of like in the gray area because we needed more information. 9. Trapping Winston in the freezer. Okay, this one's a classic from the older Tomb Raider games, especially Croft Manor. You could actually trap Lara's loyal butler, Winston, in the walk-in freezer. And let's be honest, everyone did it. The guy was always following you around, so yeah, he was annoying. But from Lara's side, that was definitely one of her coldest decisions, literally. Winston was a loyal, long-suffering employee who basically kept the entire state running. And how does Lara repay him? By locking him in a freezing room to stop him breathing down her neck. This one is a bit more in the funny side. I had to do it, sorry. I promise I will be more serious in the next ones. But yeah, it's kind of cruel to close an old man in the freezer, you know. And now that he's trapped in an ice box, who's gonna make her tea? And beans on toast? Like, that's awful. 8. Letting obsession rule her life. Bad decisions, it's a constant habit through Crystal Dynamics games. She constantly lets her obsession with artifacts and her father's legacy override her common sense. She ignores advice, rushes into danger, and refuses to consider the human cost. Her arrogance puts everyone around her at risk, leading to unnecessary deaths and global conflicts. This refusal to slow down, I think it's Lara's biggest flaw, and it's why she makes so many bad decisions. In Shadow of the Tomb Raider, she actually considered using the dark power of the dagger of checked shell to bring her parents back to life. This was incredibly selfish and dangerous. She knew the power was corrupting and that using it could doom the world, yet she still thought about it, but at least in the end she was like, maybe it's not a good idea. 7. Listening to Werner von Croy. Let's rewind way back to when Lara was just a teenager, full of curiosity, but maybe a little too trusting of her mentor, Werner von Croy. And they were like exploring a mysterious temple. Werner, being his usual arrogant self, is absolutely obsessed with finding an artifact called the Iris. Now, this isn't just any old relic. Lara actually reads an inscription that clearly warns them to not touch it. But Werner? Oh no, for him it's just like hocus pocus, like he says. Silly superstitions from ancient times. He's barking orders to Lara, so she pushes the lever. Even as a young adventurer, Lara knows in her gut that this is a terrible idea. She knows it's wrong to just take the artifacts, especially when you have warnings. But hey, he's her mentor, right? She's trying to learn, trying to please, and maybe a little too eager to prove herself. So she goes along with it, lending a hand to pry the Iris free. And boom, of course things go south immediately. The temple starts collapsing, and in the chaos, Werner gets his leg badly injured and is also trapped inside. He barely makes it out. We don't know how he did it, but he's left with a nasty limp and needs a walking stick from then on. It's a pretty clear sign from the universe that messing with ancient powerful stuff is a bad idea. What makes this even worse is that despite this accident, Werner doesn't learn his lesson. In later parts of Lara's story, we learn that he spends years studying the Iris, and not just for historical knowledge, but probably because he's trying to figure out how to weaponize its power. At least it looks like that. So Lara's decision to help him grab it directly set him on in a dangerous path, causing problems for her much later on. Talk about a bad first lesson. 6. Ignoring Jonahs' advice. Jonah is Lara's rock and voice of reason through the reboot games. And what does Lara do? She constantly ignores his advice. Jonah begs her to slow down, consider the consequences, or just take a break, but Lara's tunnel vision always wins. This isn't just about strained friendships, it's about Lara refusing to listen to good advice, which often makes things way harder than they need to be. 5. Breaking into Area 51. You know how when Lara wants something, nothing's going to stop her, not even Area 51. And in this adventure, we really see how reckless she can be. Instead of sneaking into one of the most secure places in the world, she decides to jump the fence on a quad bike. Of course, she crashes, gets knocked down, and ends up caught by the guards and locked in a cell. I always wondered what was going through her mind with a plan like that. It had a bad idea written all over it. Luckily, Lara is smart and manages to escape, but she doesn't stop there. She frees a bunch of prisoners, and together they go after the guards, who were just doing their jobs, really. On top of that, she causes a lot of damage to the equipment and facilities. Sure, she ends up getting what she came for, but there were probably better ways to go about it. 4. Getting her crew stranded. At the start of the Tomb Raider 2013, Lara is a young, untested archaeologist obsessed with finding the lost kingdom of Yamatai. She pitches a new theory to the crew. They must change the course and head for the Dragon's Triangle, and it's like a dangerous part of the ocean. So the expedition's lead archaeologist, Dr. James Whitman, immediately shuts her down. He argued that it's a foolish waste of time and resources to chase Lara's hunch, and when his own career is on the line. He wants a guaranteed discovery, not a wild goose chase. However, Lara's captain and mentor, Rod, believes in her, and despite the risks and Whitman's protests, Rod puts his faith in Lara. As captain of the Endurance, she gives the final fateful order to change the course. This decision leads them directly into a supernatural storm that destroys the ship and strands everyone on the dangerous island of Yamatai. Once stranded, the crew is hunted by a violent cult called the Solari. The decision to enter the triangle leads to one friend dying after another as they try to survive the island. Most of the characters die in the game, and we can assume that the ones that survive have a bit of trauma. And if you read the comics, I only read the ones between 2013 and The Rise. I didn't read the others, the last ones that was released. But on those ones, you also know that Sam still has Emiko inside her, so you also have that. So people die, her best friend gets kidnapped and possessed, and yeah, basically that's it. We can say this is one of her worst decisions of her life, like people died. Taking her friends into a death trap in Peru. So this happened in Tomb Raider Legend. We find out that a younger Lara traveled to Paraíso in Peru with a group of friends and decided to lead her friends into an unexplored tomb. The tomb collapses, supernatural forces are unleashed, and most of the group dies right there in the cave. It's pure chaos, even worse. Like, Lara thinks Amanda, her closest friend, is killed too. And this wasn't just a oops, I made the mistake moment. It was a decision that, like in Tomb Raider 2013, got people killed. While Lara's curiosity is admirable, it completely overruled her sense of responsibility. She wasn't ready, she didn't fully understand the risks, and yet she led people straight into danger. Sure, she survives, but at what cost? The guild follows her for years, and eventually Amanda returns. Not exactly happy. So yeah, going to Peru might felt like an adventure, but for Lara and everyone involved, it turned into one of the darkest chapters of her life. 2. Unleashing Set, the Egyptian god. In Tomb Raider The Last Revelation, Lara enters an Egyptian tomb and removes the amulet of Horus, unknowingly breaking the seal that was keeping the god Set imprisoned. She wasn't trying to destroy the world, of course. She was acting on instinct, following clues, and doing what she does best, discovering lost secrets. But this time, her curiosity didn't go well. And what makes it even worse is that she should have known better, because as a teenager, she watched her mentor, Werner von Croy, do something similar, taking the iris from a temple in Cambodia and nearly dying for it. That event shaped her entire life, so how did she not stop herself from repeating the same kind of mistake? Once Set is released, Lara spends the entire game trying to fix her mess, fighting supernatural creatures, racing through deadly ruins, and trying to restore the balance again. So why isn't this one in the first place on the list? Because thankfully, we don't see the full global consequences, there's no mass destruction montage, no scenes of cities falling, so the apocalypse feels kinda distant, more like mythical than real. But the implication is there, she almost ended the world. First, ignoring the apocalypse warnings. In Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Lara comes across the dagger of checked shell and reads murals that clearly warn about the cleansing. Probably said it wrong. As a catastrophic series of natural disasters that will begin if the dagger is taken. These warnings are not vague or mysterious, they say very clearly that a huge bad thing will happen, and yet she takes it anyway. Why? Because, of course, like we talked before, she's obsessed with beating Trinity to get every artifact before them. Her instincts as an explorer override caution that she can take the dagger and nothing bad will happen. See, The tsunami slams into the area, wiping out the entire town. Buildings crumble, people scream. Unlike other mistakes she made, this one, it happened like in that moment. It's real and yeah, you see it happening. What makes this Lara's worst decision isn't just that it caused destruction, it's that it came from her being like arrogant, but like wrapped in good intentions. She wanted to protect the dagger from Trinity, but doing so, she became the one who unleashed disaster and then act like she didn't see it coming. There are moments in the Tomb Raider series where Lara makes mistakes, but this is the one where people died right in front of her, and that's why it's in first place. And I really don't like it. I'm always saying in all videos that I really despise this scene. So there you have it, a deep dive into some of Lara's biggest screw-ups, and yeah. What these decisions really highlight is the two sides of Lara Croft. She's very brilliant, incredibly brave, always pushing boundaries of discovery, but that very drive often leads to a dangerous level of obsession and being reckless. Which Lara Croft decision do you think it was her biggest mistake? Tell me in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like to help the video reach more people, and subscribe for more videos about Tomb Raider. Until next time, bye bye!